Hello friends, it's Jordan and welcome back to my channel. I am just here to welcome you to a reading vlog. I don't very often or ever do reading vlogs for specific books. I usually do them for some kind of readathon challenge situation. However, I felt like this book was a good book to do a reading vlog for because it is a huge release of 2020. And from what I've seen so far, quite a controversial release. And it is the House Salt Book Club pick for June. With all that being said, I'm going to be reading The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins, which is the Hunger Games prequel novel, which is much larger than I anticipated because the Hunger Games books aren't that large, but this is a pretty hefty little nugget here. I have just heard so many mixed opinions on this book, and even within our book club, there haven't been very positive opinions. I felt like it would be interesting for me to read it with you along the way, and we can dissect it together and see how we feel before going into the live show. I don't really know the plot of this book beyond the basic, it's a prequel novel in the Hunger Games world, and we're following President Snow as a game maker because who asked for that? Literally no one, and yet here we are. There are so many better stories, I feel like, that I would have wanted from this world, and President Snow is not featured in any of them. But alas, this is what we've been given, so this is what we're reading. Let's get to reading, shall we? This is probably the closest you've ever been to my face, and I hope you can hear me because I'm outside right now and it is a bit windy, but I am literally on the second page, and we've learned that President Snow's cousin is named Tigress. And I haven't read the original books in years, like probably almost a decade. I did read Mockingjay, or I reread Mockingjay when the first movie came out, but it's been a very, very long time. And I remember there's a character named Tigress. And there's a character on page 2 named Tigress. And she is Snow's cousin. And I don't remember if that is at all mentioned at all in the original trilogy that they're related, but I already hate it. Be positive. Continue with positive thoughts. Did we know before that Reaping Day was on the 4th of July? At this point, I feel like every 2 paragraphs I have a comment to make. This says that, as in the past, the tributes would be dumped into the Capitol Arena, a now dilapidated amphitheater that had been used for sports and entertainment events before the war, along with some weapons to murder one another. Viewing was encouraged in the Capitol, but a lot of people avoided it. How to make it more engaging was the challenge. This little fucker is what creates the whole Hunger Games that we know of in the Hunger Games books. Like, he's the one who turns this into a disgusting game of children murdering each other. I mean, like, regardless, it's a disgusting game, but this just sounds like a gladiator sport at this point. Like, they're just dumped in a theater and said to go at it. And he's the one who makes it all, like, creative and gross. His grandmother is the one who starts the whole rose thing because she has a rose garden.
A barely there cheese pizza.
I have moved inside because it was cold outside. And now we have learned that the reason that the Snows lost all their money is because they invested it in weapons in District 13, which, as we know, was bombed and annihilated in the war. So President Snow has a personal vendetta against District 13. So many choices have been made. I'm trying to be positive, but there are just so many things that I feel like are so conveniently done just to, like, explain away so many things that happen in the later books, and I don't like it. We just found out that Snow is going to be the mentor for the District 12 girl, and I swear to God, if there is a romance between these 2 people, I might throw this book in the pool. I know it appears that we're in the same place as yesterday, but I assure you it is a new day. There is this character, and his name is Sejanus. He is definitely like what would normally be a main character of a like dystopian world. He is a kid from a district whose family came into money, and then he was brought to the capital, and he sympathizes with all the districts, and he's definitely like the voice of reason in the story. He says things like, "And now that the war's over, they're just citizens of Panem, aren't they? Same as us. Isn't that what the anthem says the capital does? You give us light, you reunite. It's supposed to be everyone's government, right? That's the general idea. Go on." Dr. Gall encourages him. "Well, then it should protect everyone. That's its number one job, and I don't see how making them fight to the death achieves that." He's definitely the voice of reason of the story, since our main character is the villain. So it's just interesting in these current times to hear this character speak and talk about other people, and talk about people in poverty, and talk about people of lesser circumstances than he is. And it rings a little bit too true in today's climate, although I guess the Hunger Games has always done that, ringing a little bit too true, hitting a little too close to home. But it just feels like in this current climate, it's very ironic that this book was written and published, now, because obviously she's written this book before, but this just feels very much too true to life, and I don't know. So the reason that Snow likes roses so much is that his mother smelled of roses, and she died in childbirth, having his younger sister. So if that isn't a villain quirk, I don't know what is. I know it still seems like it's the same day because I haven't changed my clothes, but maybe you didn't notice that and I've just drawn attention to it, but it's not the same day. There have been a few moments in the book recently that are a little too on the nose as references to the original trilogy for my liking. In front of him, Clemencia's tribute reaper, the one who strangled him in the truck, stood glowering at the ground. If it came to a mentor tribute showdown, the odds were not in Coriolanus's favor. The odds were not in his favor. And this one's even more on the nose. But they say hardly anyone in the districts saw it, Grandmama, Tigress countered. The people there don't like to watch the Hunger Games coverage. It will only take a handful to get the word out, said the Grandmam. It's just the kind of story that catches fire. It's too on the nose. It wasn't even a saying until Katniss, and here it's 60 years earlier. And also, my theory. So the tribute in the book that Snow is mentoring is from District 12, because of course she's from District 12. She, I think, was a part of like a traveling circus or carnival before the districts were formed. The districts were formed 10 years prior to this book, so she was like 6 at the time. And she is a singer, she's a performer, she writes songs. Well, at least this is the first time that we have seen that she's written a song. The other songs that she's performed in the book so far have been like Valley District songs, but then the song she sings at the interview for the Hunger Games, she wrote herself. And I was like, I swear to God, if she's the one who writes the Hanging Tree song, and that's in this book, I will lose my mind. Also, like keeping kids in cages, and like that's happening in our country, in the real world, and they're like stripping people of their rights when they're born, even though everyone is technically born free. And that's like a little too on the nose with slavery, and I don't have words. He said it again. He knew the odds were not in her favor. Does that become the slogan for the Hunger Games because Snow is just so freaking obsessed with that term, with that phrase, with that ideal? Why do they say it so often in this freaking book? One time is just a reference. More than once? Why? Gotten to a point where there is now a rapidly spreading disease. It would be really awesome if the book that we pick for the next month, July, doesn't have a pandemic or like an infectious disease, because I think every book we've picked so far has had some sort of pandemic/infectious disease. Yes, now we have introduced rabies. Love that for us. Now we're talking about how the Capitol complained that they pour so much money into the districts when they really would rather invest it in themselves. And then the like voice of reason character says, well, we pour it into our industries, into our businesses. We don't actually give it to the people. The people are on their own. And again, it's just so on point with our current political climate. And it just makes me think. I don't know if The Hunger Games or this book is supposed to be a satire, but like it feels so satirical. It feels so like metaphorical. And I don't know if it's supposed to be, but I just feel like every decision and everything that she's doing is a direct commentary on our political climate. I'm still not loving it. It's still not great. This book is entirely too long. At this point, the Hunger Games has ended. President Snow, or he's not a president yet, Snow got in trouble because he kind of cheated his way through the games to save Lucy, but Lucy won. And then as punishment for cheating, they ship him off to be a peacekeeper, and he decides to go be a peacekeeper in District 12, and he's going to try to win Lucy's affection. I realize that I look like a sweaty mess, and that's because I'm outside in the pool, and it's like 1,000,000 degrees. But I just got to this part, and I wanted to make an update. So Lucy is singing another song. This is like the Ballad of Lucy Gray or something. I think it's like an old song that she was named after, or maybe she changed it to be her name in the story. Anyway, in the song, they're following this character, Lucy Gray, who was sent out into a blizzard and may have possibly froze to death. And then an open field they crossed, the marks were still the same. They tracked them on, not ever lost, and to the bridge they came. They followed from the snowy bank those footmarks one by one, into the middle of the plank, and further there were none. Wait, what? She vanished into thin air? Which I feel like is so ironic because Lucy literally vanishes into thin air. Like for the rest of the series, there is no more Lucy. She's never mentioned again. She's a victor of the Hunger Games. You know, she wins. She's from District 12. We follow another main character, fucking Katniss, who's also from District 12. And you would think that her being a tribute, there would be some mention. Like we see Haymitch all the time. And Haymitch is another victor from 12. Like I get that Lucy's probably passed since this iteration of the Hunger Games where Katniss is in it, but like you would think that they would still talk about a tribute that won the 10th Hunger Games from an outlying district, right? Like you would think so. And she just vanishes into thin air, and I feel like it's very fitting for where her character goes in the rest of the story. Did I mention that I'm not enjoying this book? Because I'm not enjoying this book. I have less than 100 pages, and it could feel like a million at this point, and I would not know the difference. Coming to you, still looking like a sweaty mess. There were a few other things that I wanted to make a comment on. So this is kind of under like the same guise as like everybody is being protected equally, and everybody is reaping the same benefits from law enforcement, you know, very tuned into our current predicament in America, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement and the systemic racism. But this says, Lucy Gray is asking Coriolanus, that's what you think people would do? I do. Unless there's law and someone enforcing it, I think we might as well be animals, he said with more assurance. Like it or not, the Capitol's the only thing keeping anyone safe. So they keep me safe. And what do I give up for that? She asked. Coriolanus poked at the fire with a stick. Give up? Why, nothing. The Covey did, she said. Can't travel, can't perform without their say-so, can only sing certain types of songs, fight getting round up, and you get shot at like my daddy, try to keep your family together, and you get your head broken like my mama. What if I think that price is too high to pay? Maybe my freedom's worth the risk. So your family were rebels after all? My family were Covey, first and last. Not district, not capital, not rebel, not peacekeeper, just us. And you're like us. You want to think for yourself, to push back. I know because of what you did for me in the games. I know that she didn't write this in June, but she could have written this in June. And it's just like such a weird thing for her to continually comment on because she's like beating you over the head with it. But it's like commenting on something without really commenting on something. Like she's saying all these profound things, but like not really. And also like these are all topics that have already been covered in the Hunger Games trilogy, which actually like explored it and like dived into the issue, whereas this, it's just like it says it and then it leaves it up to you to extrapolate, which is fine because you have to put some faith in the reader. It's hard to read in this current climate. People have been around a long time without the Capitol. I expect they'll be here a long time after, she concluded. Coriolanus thought of the dead cities he'd passed on the journey to District 12. She claimed the Covey had traveled, so she must have seen them as well. Not many of them. Panem used to be magnificent. look at it now. And it like was never magnificent, which is like the whole point. And then we move into the most ridiculous reference yet. And that would be the stupid Katniss reference. Clerk Carmine brought Lucy Gray a plant he'd uprooted from the lake with pointy leaves and small white flowers. Hey, you found some Katniss. Good work, Cece. A little too early yet. Yeah, Clerk Carmine agreed. For what? Asked Coriolanus. For eating. In a few weeks, these will grow into decent-sized potatoes, and we can roast them. Some people call them swamp potatoes, but I like Katniss better. Has a nice ring to it. Swamp potatoes? Katniss is a swamp potato. Last update for the moment, I'm getting so close to the end, is they have the meadow song in here. You know, deep in the meadow, under the willow, a bed of grass, a soft green pillow, lay down your head and close your sleepy eyes, and when again they open, the sun will rise. Who asked for all these songs? Who asked for the backstory of all these songs? Who asked for the origin of all these songs? I did not. All right, I'm gonna go upstairs and keep reading. I just finished The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Basically, I don't understand the point of this book. I don't understand the reason that this exists. I don't understand the reason she chose the story. I don't understand anything. I don't understand. I don't understand. So we find out in the end of the book that Snow and Lucy Gray are planning to run away together, and they're in this cottage, and he finds the weapons that were what was used to kill Sejanus, or that he used to kill Mayfair or somebody. And this is like the whole reason that he's running away, is because he's afraid he's going to get found out and he's going to have to go to jail for his crimes. He finds these things as Lucy Gray is out picking Katniss potatoes, swamp potatoes, for them to eat. And then he freaks out, follows her into the rain, is chasing her, trying to kill her, I guess, is what he was doing. Basically, he just like leaves her in the woods, never finds her. She just disappears into thin air, and he goes back to District 12, and he gets ready to leave the next morning to go to the university for officer training, or wherever he was going, District 2 for officer training. And then, so like, just like the song about the Lucy character, where she disappears into the woods and they can't find her, and her being like footprints, and is she a ghost? Is she an apparition? Like, what is she? Foreshadowing for what happens to the actual character Lucy. There's like no end to her story. And then he goes back to the Capitol. He gets recruited by Dr. Ghoul, who is the one that is doing all of the mutt experimentation and stuff, and she basically grooms him into being President Snow that we know in the final books. She announces that she has deleted all the copies of the 10th annual Hunger Games, so it is as if it never existed, because there were so many issues with tributes dying because of the mentors that they had chosen from the school. This Hunger Games doesn't even exist in record anymore. And so what is the point of it? What is the point of it? Nothing comes out of this book. There is nothing that happens in this book that impacts the original trilogy in any way. Nothing. None of the characters are brought into the later series, but she didn't even like call back any characters really from the original trilogy other than Tigris, and made them cousins, which was a choice. I just feel like there's no point to this book. Snow starts as a terrible character, he ends as a terrible character, he always is oppressive, there's never a story arc, there's never any push or pull of will he be swayed to the good at any point of the story. He has a romance, which just like, fuck you, don't deserve a romance. And Lucy is like this manic pixie dream girl. Like, she has no agency. She has no point. There's a weird power imbalance with him being the mentor and her being the tribute. He doesn't really like her, he decides by the end of the book. I don't understand the point of this. We spend so much time in District 12, but yet we don't see any ancestors from any of our District 12 characters. We don't see like ancestors of the Everdeens or of the Malarks. Like, it would be so easy to do that, and they didn't do that. And she put so many other Easter eggs in here, but they're like beaten over your head, and like the songs. The Hanging Tree song is in here way too much. The Meadow song is in here quite a few times. He creates the hole in the fence that Katniss goes through to get out into the woods to hunt. They go to the same lake. He hates mockingjays because they're an unnatural abomination living in nature there. They're thriving and he hates that. He, you know, comes in contact with swamp potatoes, Katniss. There were so many Easter eggs. It didn't need to be the Easter eggs that she chose. Like, I would have much preferred connections between the characters, with like something that ties the two books together, because this is just like planting it's changing the entire dynamic between Snow and Katniss in the later books, because the point is that she's no one from nowhere and she makes a difference. She creates rebellion. She overthrows the Capitol. Like, that's the whole point of Katniss, and to now make her be this symbol of everything that he hates from his childhood, from like the one time that he might have been in love, it just I hate it. So in the Hunger Games, you're in Katniss's head. Like, you are so intimately connected to Katniss, and not that I wanted to be in Snow's head because he's such a terrible fucking person, but it's his story and it's third person. It doesn't give you any reason to sympathize. I don't even want to sympathize with him. I don't want that to happen, but it doesn't give anything to the story. You almost needed it to be in first person and for it to be unsettling and for it to be disturbing. Like, it needed to be written kind of like a mystery thriller. That would have made it at least a more compelling read, and you don't have that. And then he's like such a flat, one-dimensional cardboard character that is just bad all the time. And he is, I don't believe that these characters wouldn't have seen through him at any point. They wouldn't have been like, you are shady and you're unconvincing and I don't believe you. Like, nothing about him is charismatic, even though he's supposed to be so charismatic. But he needed some serious like Ted Bundy energy and he didn't have it. And it gets a lot to ask a writer to write in that frame of mind, and not every writer can do that. But if you can't do that, don't write a villain story. I thought that this was going to be his rise to the presidency. Like, we were going to see how he becomes President Snow, but you don't even get that. Like, you spend like 2 months, 3 months, 4 months with him as he is like a senior in high school, essentially. He's picked as a mentor for these games, and some of his ideas are what become the Hunger Games later. Like, he suggests that they require all of the districts to watch it, and that you have to watch the repeat and you have to watch the games. It makes it more a mandatory event, and like, he starts to plant the seeds for everything that comes later. And I would have much rather have read that story, like read the story of him rising to power, read the story of him introducing these ideas into the games and shaping them in his twisted image, and how he becomes the president. Because in this, he's just a teenager who might be in love with his tribute. It's a weird story to tell. It's a weird slice of life story for President Snow that serves no purpose for the larger story, and I don't understand why this was her choice. Mags's Hunger Games is the 11th Hunger Games, so why could we not have just gone to that year? There would have been way more connections to the original trilogy. Snow would have been at least in college, and he would have been working on the games, and he would have had a hand in it. I also find out that the Hunger Games was kind of done as like a joke, like a project by a university student. The dean of the college in this book, it was like his senior project, and he did it whilst drunk, and then Snow's dad sold it off to, or turned it in on his behalf, and he was disgusted with the idea that he came up with. And when he awoke from his drunken slumber, he was so upset that Snow's dad had taken his work and turned it in, because he wanted to destroy it because he felt it was such an abomination. And now he's been dragged through this for 10 years and he's having to contribute to this thing that he hates. And like, that's even a more like compelling story that we could have seen. Unfortunately, unlike what Snow says throughout the entirety of this book, Snow does not land on top. And I give this like a 1.5 out of 5 stars, and I do not recommend. I would love to know what you thought of this book if you have read it. We did an entire live show discussion on this book. I will link that on the screen if you want to listen to all of us discuss. I felt like it was a really great discussion. Thank you guys for joining me on this excursion. I hope that you had more fun than I had. And if you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, my handles are on the screen now. Please come be my friend. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, I will talk to you very soon. Bye!